there's a lot of different pieces of advice out there on how to deal with rejection. You may have heard some of them. Have a thick skin, ignore it, power through it, keep moving. But that doesn't really tell you why the rejection is happening, and it doesn't give you the opportunity to improve on it, right? So there was, a couple of years ago, there were researchers at Northeastern University and George Mason University got together and did a study to see if there was maybe a better way to deal with rejection. Their study, and you can look this up if you want to, is called Unpacking Emotion Differentiation, Transforming Unpleasant Experience by Perceiving Distinctions in Negativity.
By the way, that was title and subtitle.
Right.
So it's intense, but I'm sure it's worth the read based off of the data that they have in this.
Right. But they did the study, and their results kind of went against the traditional overcoming rejection advice that we've all kind of heard, right? And what they say is, instead of ignoring it, instead of pressing it down, instead of having thick skin and just powering through, they're actually saying, embrace the negative emotions, feel the pain, and then take a moment to analyze the feelings. What do you feel in response to that rejection? Then find out the source of why you feel that way, also why you were rejected if you can, and then you can actually formulate a more quote-unquote logical, if you will, response to the situation. And the first step in embracing your emotions is, of course, to label them. Figure out, are you feeling, instead of just I feel angry or upset, think of more specific labels for your emotions. Are you frustrated? Do you feel confused? Do you feel trapped? And really get down to the root of what exactly is your reaction to that rejection. And then, again, from there, you can figure out what is the exact source of the rejection and that why do you feel that way. For example, are you being rejected personally, or is it your idea that's being rejected? Is it your for an entrepreneur, for example, is it your product or the message about your product? That kind of thing. So these researchers basically said that once you start to understand the why behind the rejection and your feelings, the better you can then choose what your response is going forward, and have a strategy that you can follow if you want to improve on that, so that that particular rejection maybe doesn't happen again.
And it's a really valid point, because that's how we learn, right? That's the educational process. It's not about doing something wrong over and over and over again and expecting different results, because of course most people say that's really the definition of insanity. Let me bash my head against this wall multiple times, and one of these days I'm gonna have to break through it, right? And instead of doing that, it's about looking at it, analyzing it like we would with anything else, and going, okay, this is the issue, this is what's causing this issue, how can I fix it? And I think by better understanding that, you can actually take it on and move on, rather than having this consistent issue of feeling downtrodden anytime you take on rejection, because you still don't understand it. In a way, by ignoring it and just trying to power through, it really just makes us almost more ignorant in a sense, and it never leads us to moving on. We just feel it again and again and again, and we move on for maybe a day or two, and then feel it again as soon as that rejection happens again. And we also, it's very hard not to take it personally a lot of times, and some people don't have to, or they move on and can take it on. But overall though, it really is about learning from the process. And I think just like anything else as well, I do feel that the issue stems from the fact that we also put too much emphasis and we take things too far when it comes to these life lessons. For instance, they say, well, have thick skin, push forward, move on, when really, yes, that is true to a point, but first you have to understand it. First you have to learn from it and go, oh, you know what? This is my issue. This is what is causing this root core. Now I can move on successfully and push forward. And my skin is thicker naturally because I better understand the issue. And I think we beat ourselves up way too easily while we go through this process. So again, the more educated you are, the better you feel about this certain situation, the better and easier it is to move forward.
Exactly. And I think you hit up on that really good point of, it's like when you face any problem, right? Rejection is just a problem. How do you get through the problem? How do you get through the rejection? You gotta distance yourself emotionally and take a look at what's really happening, analyze the situation, and then if you want to fix it, some people don't, if you want to fix it, take the steps to figure out what's actually happening, choose your response appropriately, and move forward. Rejection just happens to be a problem or an obstacle. And I just want to take a quick moment to say hello to everybody who came in from Faros's stream. Welcome, everybody. This is our main talk show. We have it every Wednesday at 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and it is also a podcast that you can hear on Podbean as well. And loving the love right now. Thank you so much. We can't get to every comment right now, but we will make sure to take some time out at the end of the show. And if you do have any questions or comments that you would like us to touch on regarding our topics today, we're more than happy to do that. But thank you so much, and thank you for all of the follows that we're getting as well. Much appreciated.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so very much for everyone stopping by and engaging with us today. We really appreciate it. Thank you very much, Faros, once again for the raid, coming into the Twitch channel here. That is really awesome. And we'll make sure at the very end to thank everyone who's followed and engaged with us thus far in the chat. Right now, what we're talking about is the fact of facing regret. You know, how do we
Rejection.
do this? Or excuse me, I keep saying regret. I don't know why.
But how do you have some regrets that you want to talk about?
But, you know, facing rejection, you know, how do we do that? We feel like, you know, with the new year already here, it's 2018. Last year, at the very end of last year, aka last week, we spoke about, well, how to flex your gratitude muscle, how to show gratitude for yourself and what you've done and for what others do as well. And it's just as important as well to also, you know, face rejection. Because we're going to do it. We're going to face it no matter what. We're going to face an obstacle that gets in the way of where we want to go. We have this set destination, this set path in our heads. But as soon as we don't meet expectations with what we had in our mind, or expectations in general are not met, then, you know, we feel rejected and we feel dejected. And so how do we face this? And we say that from this study that for the most part, you know, it's all about learning and accepting it and feeling it. Not just going, well, I'm just going to trudge through and nothing's ever wrong. And, you know, rejection, screw emotions. I'm just going to move on. We're not automatons. We're not robots, you know. We are emotional beings. And it's important to understand that and learn from it before we can move forward. I'm sure Faros definitely respects this, being an educator himself, about understanding, you know, the importance of learning in order to move forward, which is so very, very important. Otherwise, again, what we're doing is just setting ourselves up and into this sense of ignorance, and it doesn't do anything but hurt us over and over again, rather than really having us truly move forward.
Right. And I also think that, you know, we talk about people as, you know, we're very emotional people, and, you know, being passionate is not a bad thing. It's not a crime. In fact, I think if more people were more passionate about their lives and what they do, I think that would make this world a much better place. But that's just another topic for another day. And so, you know, what these researchers from Northeastern and George Mason universities are saying is not necessarily to ignore the emotions or to not have the emotions, or that some emotions are better than others or anything like that. They're just merely saying, recognize them, you know, take a step back, and really then analyze the source of these emotions. And if you don't want to keep feeling them, because some people do thrive on rejection. That's their, I've met plenty of people who that's their thing. That's what they like doing. It's very strange. But like, figure out what the emotions are, where they're coming from, and then choose your response to them. And again, as I mentioned before, for those of you that are just joining us, this is good for any sort of obstacle or problem that you face. If you're dealing with emotions that you perceive as negative to yourself, take a step back, figure out what's going on, and then choose your response. Don't let the emotions just overtake you to such a degree that you sort of lose your ability to react appropriately.
Exactly. And actually, to go into chat here, and again, for everyone that's just joined us, feel free to give your questions and comments. And as we go through the discussion here, we'll be more than happy to relay them via audio here onto the podcast and through the stream, and answer questions and go through and elaborate more on some of the points that you all have in the chat. So, for instance, Invictum, which, by the way, thank you so much for coming in and jumping into the conversation here. We really do appreciate that. Invictum says, I think acknowledging the rejection is natural and preparing yourself for it is the key. More often than not is the anticipation of rejection, which does more damage to people. No matter the subject, I find that listening to someone truly passionate about something is so satisfying. And, about the rejection too here, I think that's an absolutely fantastic point, is that, we're also so concerned about rejection in the very beginning. And, so on the side, I do acting, and I also have trained others in acting. And one of the things I tell people is, well, first I ask them, I say, well, what's on your mind whenever you're going in for a role, whenever you're auditioning for a role? And they go, well, to get the role. I want the role, so I want to make sure that I get it. I go, okay, but the role's not yours. And they go, what do you mean? I mean, the role is not yours. Until you are offered that role, that is not your role. So go in there without the concern of rejection, without the expectation of even getting it, and just go in there knowing this is what needs to be done. So assume the role of that character, hit the lines, hit the marks, hit the cues, do everything you need to do emotionally to connect to the story and tell that story. That is your job. Your job is not to go, I have this in the bag, this is mine, or that, well, I don't want to screw this up. That's not what they're looking for. And so rejection can be a huge cloud in our brains that just gets in the way of everything. And we have a hard time seeing what else is actually out there and what my actual point or destination really should be, which in that point in time is just to play the damn character.
Right. And the casting directors and the directors that are in there, the producer, they want to find that person. They want you to be the person who just makes them stop looking. Exactly. I will definitely say that. Certainly, I know that both you and I have been on the other side as well, doing the casting, and I want to be blown away by the person who's auditioning for me. I don't want them to screw up. I don't want them to fail. And but I could tell when someone would come into the audition, and I could just tell on their face they already either thought they got it, which made them a poor actor, because they were arrogant, or they thought that they didn't have it and they were just there like I don't know, just hanging by a thread. And neither of those are fun to look at. But no. You could tell the ones who came in who were just like, I want to act. This is what I enjoy doing. I just want to be here and be in the moment and do it. So definitely.
Well, and also you have HR experience, and it goes the same way when it comes to interviewing for a job. I'm sure many people out there have gone through the process of the whole interview with, a potential job, that thing that you want so bad. Oh, I've got to have this position. And yet, we're so worried about the rejection of it. But honestly, for the people hiring, and you can definitely build off this if you want, but for the hiring, they want to find someone. It costs them money to keep looking and to have that position open and not to have someone filling it and working on it. And plus, I'm sure other employees are stressed out because they have to make up the work for the lack of that role being filled. And so they're looking for the right person. They're not looking at you going, they're going to screw up, they're going to suck, we're going to automatically reject them before they even walk in the door. And most of the time people forget, you got the chance to walk into the door. There's such a high number of people that get rejected from a job that if you get an interview, and especially if they even go as far as going, hey, you know what? We're going to look into your references. That's huge. But again, we forget about that and go, oh, well, I'm going to be rejected. Oh, I haven't heard back from him in a week. So I'm just going to go and try somewhere else and forget about this. So what are your thoughts on that from being on the other side of that table?
Oh, yeah, no, that's absolutely true. We are wasting time and money whenever, as an HR person, you want to find the right people for the right job ASAP, right? Because you're getting pressure from your boss. Hey, why can't you find someone who works out? And plus, not only that, you got to find somebody not only who's a good fit for the position itself, like do they have the skill set, that kind of thing, but you also have to find somebody who has, as they say, the culture fit correctly too, right? Because you're not going to, you want to make sure they're going to stay there is the other thing, because otherwise in 2 months you're back to square one, right? And I will say, one thing that obviously this study doesn't touch on because that's not what they were studying, but specifically, at least in this instance of a job interview, but I think it works for all sorts of rejections, honestly. Like if you get rejected, if you don't get that job, if you don't get that whatever, that client, if you don't get that follower, whatever it might be, don't be afraid to ask why. There was never, when I had to send out thanks for coming in, sorry it's not you letters, not once did anybody reply to my email and say, oh, okay, thank you for the update, may I ask what particular aspect didn't work out, or maybe why did you choose to go with someone else, just so that they could improve on it. And I again, I can't speak for all HR people, but had I gotten an email like that, I would have absolutely responded to them and said exactly why, because whether it wasn't a culture fit, whether it wasn't a skill set fit, that person would then have some extra ammunition, extra ammunition for their next interview. They would know, and then the reason I say this is because when I went to one of my first interviews out of college, interviewed for TJX companies, I should say, not TJ Maxx. Look who wants to go shopping. I went there, and first off, the building I went to, their headquarters, was massive. Tons of people. They had a robot delivering mail. This was back in a long time ago. And I got so overwhelmed by that. I realized as I was there, I didn't actually want the job anymore. I didn't want to be a cog in this massive machine. But I'm like, I wasn't going to just walk out. So I was like, all right, I'll go through the interview. But my heart wasn't in it, and I wasn't passionate about it anymore. So I was myself, but I wasn't myself 100% extra. So at the end of the interview, the woman walks out and she's like, man, we love your skill set. We love this. We love that. You're amazing. She's like, but, next time just grab a coffee or something before you come in. You have no energy. And it was amazing. If that hadn't, if the building hadn't already told me no, she definitely was. I was like, all right, listen, everyone has different energy levels. Thank you very much. But it was interesting to hear that feedback, because, if let's say they had just sent me a letter, saying, oh, sorry, no thanks, I'd have been like, oh man, what was it? And I would have, racked my brain to try to figure out, is it my schooling? Is it my this? Did I not wear the right clothes? What was it? She just told me. She's like, oh, well, your energy. They still offered me the job, but, but don't be afraid to ask why. In any situation, the worst that can happen is you don't get a response back. Okay, so you're in the same place you were before, right?
Yeah, well, and what is the saying that the answer to all unasked questions is no?
Right.
And it's kind of an irony, too, because especially with something like, let's say, a job interview, in this case, where we do get rejected, not only do we try to trudge through and not learn from the process by emailing the HR person saying, well, hey, what aspect did not work with your environment or what you're looking for in the position? But also, on top of that, we a lot of times don't want to send that email because we're worried about rejection and not having that person respond back. So now we have these multiple different levels of rejection getting in our way. It's like, well, maybe I would ask, what's going on here. But at the same time, if they don't respond, then I feel like my time was wasted, or like I really am nothing. And then, you know, that ball of rejection just gets bigger and bigger in our stomach, and we can't get rid of it. And I think that's the point, though, is that, again, all unasked questions, the answer is no. So if you're not asking, it's always going to be no, no matter what. You're always facing rejection. You're just setting yourself up for it at that point.
Right.
So, you know, hopefully in 2018, all of us here, we move on. We learn from it. We learn to feel the emotions and actually accept that, because we're human beings. That's what we're supposed to do, is feel emotions: anger, happiness, joy, euphoria, some kind of catharsis here. And it's okay to feel those. It's not meant to all be held within. And so with that, let's learn, you know, together, how do we take on rejection? How do we flex that gratitude muscle? And ideally make things better for everyone.
Right on. And Victim actually has another a very good point. Perhaps life would be a nicer experience for us all if we just enjoyed the present, right? Because what do they say? Anxiety is thinking about the past. Or no, anxiety is thinking about the future. Depression is thinking about the past, broadly, very loosely talking about that, you know, when we kind of get into those moods. But if we just took a moment to ground ourselves into the present, however that might be, whether it's meditation, whether you're petting your cat, whether you're playing a video game, and just really take yourself, you know, give yourself a little break. You know, you're okay. You're gonna be okay. And the only stupid question is the one you don't ask. That's correct.
Absolutely, and no more rage. It's very true. I mean, the concept of rejection, of doubt, and it really builds up into rage, and then we get angry. And we get angry at ourselves, we get angry at our situation, and that even is such a larger hurdle to go over, because rage is such a strong emotion, and it really does get imprinted onto everything that we do. And so then, again, you're debilitating yourself. So hopefully we can move forward with that.